He's won FPL. He's got 3 of the highest priced 4 players in the game in his Game Week 1 team at the moment. This is his first draft. Do not go anywhere because Josh is a professor at the University of Oxford. Josh, welcome to the show. How are you, my friend?
I'm very well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Mate, thank you for coming on. I remember tracking your form in that 2019-20 season when you won the thing. Just tell us a little bit first about your day job, because maths and FPL can go hand in hand. You're a maths professor, a world-renowned university, and this is really interesting. You actually use maths to research cancer. That's your day job, right? Researching cancer.
Yes, yeah, definitely. So I'm thanks for the promotion. I'm not actually a professor just yet. I'll put that out there before people start yelling at me. But yeah, I'm a full-time mathematician funded by Cancer Research UK. I mainly work on kind of lots of data analysis and kind of method development for doing cancer research. And yeah, that's kind of an approach that I bring to fantasy football, but not quite so rigorous, maybe.
Yeah, okay. And just tell us about your style of play then, because as soon as I heard you were like really into maths, I thought straight away, you're probably really interested in the data around FPL and maybe you take quite an analytic approach. Tell us how you won FPL. Was it through that analytic approach?
Yeah, I always feel a bit embarrassed about this because, the article that you're showing at the moment, Maths and Fantasy Football, and I think there was a lot of buzz when I won it of people putting 2 and 2 together and saying, oh, great, you've got some algorithm that solved fantasy football or something like that. So I think I try and play quite analytically and I do look at lots of the numbers and things, but I didn't do any fancy modeling or anything like that. There was a huge element of luck just involved in, having a lot of decisions go the right way. And I do think that playing according to the numbers puts you in a better position to have those decisions go the right way. But yeah, I'm very aware there's a lot of people who disagree with that.
Well, I think there's a good balance in FPL. Like you get a lot of analytics guys, and then you get a lot of those that are perhaps more into eye test and it's I think you've got to use probably a combination of both to be the best FPL managers. But look, I mean, here today, go on.
Yeah, no, I was going to say I do agree with you. I think I did a lot of second-hand eye test. That I didn't actually watch any matches until about Christmas time of that season. But I was doing a lot of, just reading around the community, like people online. What do people who actually know anything about football think about how so-and-so looks? And then just kind of sticking that all together with the numbers in my head and trying to reach a good decision.
Yeah, okay, no, that makes complete sense. Well, look, let's have a look at your Game Week 1 team, shall we? I mean, this is, of course, a first draft. And this isn't going to stick. And I guess probably half the team will leave and go and come back. And maybe we'll be left with 6 or 7 of these in Game Week 1. But so far, this is your initial, I guess, your reaction. And I want to start our discussion, I guess, with premiums, because I expected you to have some of the analytics darlings, some of the players that are talisman for their team because they play 90, they score lots of goals, they're on penalties, they're on set pieces. And straight away in the intro, I said, you've got 3 of the top 4 priced players in FPL. Now, when we look at Salah, Haaland, Isak, Palmer, you don't have, and let's start with this, Erling Haaland. So let's just tell me why you don't have Haaland, and then obviously everyone watching will know the 3 you do have. Why not Haaland? Was it his price? Is it his form last year? Obviously, you can't have them all. You're not saying Haaland's a bad pick. I don't have Haaland either. But why is that?
Yeah, I find forwards in general, I'm not a big fan of them. I think especially the premium forwards, tend to take up a huge amount of budget. Yeah. And they just have to score a hell of a lot more to sort of reach the same level as the premium mids. So I'm a big fan of premium midfielders, even premium defenders if they're the right ones. But the premium mids to me are where the huge amount of points can come in. So that's kind of what tipped Haaland versus Isak, at least in that first draft, was just the amount of money. I think you can get a lot more bang for your buck spent further back in the field.
Yeah, interesting from this list of most expensive players, like Isak and Watkins and Haaland, I think are the only 3 forwards on there. So it is a list that is dominated, I guess, by midfielders. You do have one, I think, that we'll get to premium defenders in a minute and see how many of these guys you've got. But you do have one that's a a forward in that bracket. So you didn't go Haaland, but you went to the next best thing in terms of price, and that is Alexander Isak, right? So talk to me a little bit about Isak, because Newcastle don't have the best fixtures, but he's a player that will score in those big fixtures, those tough fixtures. I saw him against Arsenal in the League Cup semi-finals last year over 2 legs, and he just bullied Saliba and Gabriel. And you don't see those defenders bullied, and Isak's got that ability to score against anyone.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I think if you're going to be spending premium amounts on people, they've got to be able to score and get you those fantasy points. I think Isak's shown that he can do that now, which is great. As you say, this is very much my sort of first draft. And I think as much as anything, I do want a forward who is going to give me the flexibility to kind of change formation if I need to. So if Haaland suddenly looks absolutely essential, it's kind of possible to climb there. I mean, difficult with Haaland, but it's sort of possible to restructure rather than having no money spent up front at all. So that's a bit of the caveat around Isak is he hits that price point as much as it's him as a player that I like.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I've seen a lot of drafts who don't have a premium, who don't have a Watkins or an Isak or a Haaland, and they've maybe got 3, 6.5, 7 million forwards. But then to get to Haaland, you probably need 2, if not 3 transfers. It will be, it's a lot more difficult. So I like that you've thought of that. I mean, Mo Salah and Palmer, we got some attacking data here from the Scout members area, guys. This is my rankings, Josh, and I'm ashamed to show them to you because it's very basic maths, but I've ranked each team by goals, by XG, and then by big chances. So, for example, Chelsea scored the 7th most goals with 64, but they got the 2nd best XG, the 2nd most big chances. So all in all, they had 11 points in how I ranked them. That put them as the 3rd best attack for me. So I'm ranking these teams by the best attack last season. And Liverpool and Chelsea both feature in that top 3. So you've got Liverpool's best attacker and Chelsea's top attacker. And I guess some of this data is why.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm a big fan of XG as a stat in general. I think it's probably more useful when you're looking at individual players rather than teams. For me personally, just in that if all of the XG is coming from players other than Palmer, there's no point going for Palmer. But like you say, it's those premium players who are going to be a bit of a talisman for their team. Definitely a focal point of a lot of the goals or a lot of the attacking threat that's coming through. And I do think if you're going to be spending that money, you want teams who are going to be having that goal threat.
Are you conscious that Palmer at 10.5 million is like more than Saka? Many thought he'd be the same as Saka, perhaps. He's a lot more than someone like a Florian Wirtz. He's up 2 million in that. I knew, we've never spoken, other than some DMs to set this up, and maybe the occasional tweet years ago. And I had to make a thumbnail for this video, and I didn't receive your team, right? So I was like, who can I put on the thumb that I know you'll pick that's not perhaps so obvious? I didn't want to put Salah on the thumbnail, right? And I gambled and I went Palmer because any analytical manager wants Cole Palmer in their team because he ticks all the boxes I've just said. The talisman for his team, pen, set pieces, best attack. And I knew you'd have Cole. I'm a Chelsea fan and I don't have Cole Palmer in my Game Week 1 team yet. He wasn't in my first draft, but I gambled with Palmer. So fortunately, I don't now have to change that thumbnail because I've seen your team and I was straight away, Palmer's in, brilliant. Talk to me about him and his price because there's a huge gap between Palmer and the other Chelsea forwards. But as you said, things like Team XG doesn't matter as much to you. It's about the individual.
Yeah, and then, again, at this point, it's as much about the price point as anything else. So I like having this structure where I've got, I was going to say a premium mid. I mean Salah. I like having Salah. So he's
there's a safety blanket there, isn't there? Safety blanket, yeah.
He just never lets you down, does he? Yeah. It's just great to have him in your FPL team. And if you don't have him, you always wish you did. I don't think that's going to be any different this season. So then, I still want to put those money in the premium mids. I think that's where the value is a lot of the time. And so I think partly Palmer's at that right price point for the moment. But it doesn't bother me at all, that kind of 10.5 million price tag. I think that's that sort of ballpark. If it ends up being that it's easier to balance the rest of the team. If I've got an extra 500,000 here or there, then maybe he becomes Saka. But I'm quite happy having him in this first draft at that price point, where I know it's somewhere I can free up money if I want to, but I don't want to have to. As you say, coming back to Palmer more specifically, rather than just 10.5 million mid, I think he's proven that he's a great FPL asset. I think his price isn't so much more than last season to make me really think, is that worth the money? I do think Chelsea are going to be good this year. So, why not? Why not have him in?
The fixtures are good. This is from Fantasy Football Scout, filtering the first 5 game weeks by attacking difficulty. Only Villa have a better first 5 attacking fixtures than Chelsea. So Palace, West Ham, Fulham, Brentford and United, all for Cole Palmer. I feel like with the Club World Cup as well, I think they'll start strong because of the momentum from winning that and from playing in that. I think we could see a dip and there's some tired legs maybe by November, December, but I don't think we'll see that in August. And if you do want to check Scout out, guys, obviously look at that QR code on the right-hand side and the 47% off in the members area at the moment. And actually, this is a great excuse for me to just say, if you could, hit that like button, but please do subscribe to this channel if you fancy. I've got loads of preseason content planned. I'm speaking to other FPL winners like Josh, but also daily videos pretty much between now and game week 1. So hit the subscribe bell as the notification bell with the subscribe button if you fancy. Okay, should we go back then to Salah? I don't think we need to discuss, but I do want to get to your goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders, and the rest of your forwards. We've got a lot to get through. So look, goalkeepers, you've gone cheap. Darlow could be number 1 at Leeds at 4 million. Kelleher, though, you've the best of the 4.5 picks by some distance. He is playing in a Brentford team with a new manager, so we don't know how good they'll be defensively. But Kelleher's, I think, when I looked earlier, he was the most popular pick in the game amongst goalkeepers.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me too much. I think the price point is really attractive. It's another case of second-hand analytics for me, where I've not dived into the numbers at all, but I'm sure that Brentford have. And as a club, I'm sort of very much an admirer of the way that they've set about recruiting, the way they've set about building the team based on the numbers. So I'm always, whether that's a comfort blanket or not, I don't know. I'm always just a bit more confident that they're able to find good players. So, yes, he's in there a bit as I like having a cheap goalkeeper. But equally, like it being Brentford just gives it that extra little bit of security in my head where I think, I'm more likely to stick with it.
We've got one of Brentford's players from last season in your team coming up as well. And look, if you read the book, XG Philosophy, it's a lot about Brentford and how they recruit with XG and all their numbers and how they were like 10 years ahead of everyone else for data. And their scouting and Brighton is first class. Yeah,
both Brentford and Brighton certainly they're always good FPL assets. And it's for that exact reason. It's the exact same reason those teams have become established in the Premier League over the last few years. They are very, very good at it, and they're doing it because of the numbers. And maybe that, like you say, I'm a mathematician. I'm a bit biased, but I do think that's just a great approach to football recruitment and to building and running a club.
They rarely miss their recruitment. They can pick players out like Mbeumo or Caicedo or Cucurella, those 2 clubs, and they turn them into world beaters. By the way, both those teams, they are specialists in data, but they're also run and owned by gamblers with data companies. So work it out, light years ahead. Okay, let's move on to some defenders and midfielders. We spoke about the premiums. You've got a couple of these guys. There is no defender this year more than 6 million. No one came in at 6.5, right? Even Guardiola, he was the one I thought that might do, but I thought it was a good call that no more than 6. We had Trent and Cancelo and Marcus Alonso in years gone by when you won it, but we've seen attacking returns drop quite a bit. Who do you like from this lot on why in this band? I mean, I think only 1, if not 2, are in your team, right?
Yeah, I love a premium defender, and especially I love an attacking premium defender who's going to go and get goals. I think Trent Alexander-Arnold is probably my all-time favourite FPL asset to have, just because always had that ability to pull a goal out of nowhere when you sort of needed him to. I don't know, and this is my lack of kind of Premier League football knowledge coming to the fore. I don't know a huge amount about any of the premium defenders really at this point. I don't know who the reliable ones are who are going to be able to go out there and be that goal threat or be that attacking threat. So certainly my defensive choices are all very up in the air at the moment. Vardiol being the one who I've got the most confidence in just because he's had that performance in the last few seasons where he can go out and pull out those attacking returns. I don't know whether this rule change with the defensive actions is going to make a difference in the way that the kind of optimal strategy around those defenders goes. But I've always targeted attacking defenders rather than defensively solid ones, ideally both. But I would rather they've got the ability to get a return even if they don't get that clean sheet. So certainly whoever I end up with, I'm probably going to take that philosophy forwards. But it may be all up in the air this season with that rule change. I don't know.
Yeah, and look, Frimpong had more goals and opposition box touches than any other defender in Europe over Europe's top 5 leagues over the last 2 seasons. So you have picked a numbers guy in Frimpong for attacking threat. Gvardiol gives you that security. Even if he's playing centre-back more, you're going to get a lot of clean sheets and bonus points. And then Tuanzebe's a cheap 4 million that will start for Burnley. And then Konza, I was surprised to see Konza come in at 4.5 million. I think that's a good pick. Aston Villa showed signs at the end of last season that clean sheets can come. They didn't start the season well with regards to defenders. So no, I absolutely get your decision making there. Do you think then, looking at this list of premium defenders, do you think you'll probably be there for 2 of them? You've got Gvardiol and Frimpong at the moment. That's a lot of money in the back. But what you haven't done, you haven't gone for the 5s and 5.5s. You've gone 2 6s and then 4.5, 4. And you think, you said earlier, you like premiums, and this is typical of your draft. You go for the really high end players and then quite a few sort of middle to bottom, but not too many in that sort of threshold upper middle bracket in every position in your team.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly like to have, like, you've got 3 players on the bench. I don't want to spend any money on them. And I always like it if I can have a 4th player who's at the bottom of their price bracket, whether that's defender, midfielder, forward, who I'm starting every week. So ideally, I would like 2, either 4.5 mid or 4 million defenders, where they're both going to start. They're not going to be amazing, but they're going to get some minutes. They're going to get 90 minutes every week, say. So that's kind of the role that someone like Tuanzebe is hopefully playing in that team, where, yes, he's at the bottom of that bracket, but he's kind of standing in for the player who is kind of really a bench option, but is going to free up the money for those premium defenders as well.
I like that. You've gone for an approach which is, it's not the most sort of robust 11, but it's an 11 which has got a ton of premiums in, and then maybe your 10th and 11th man, and certainly your 3 bench players are the bottom price bracket that might tick over and get you some points, but you're not looking for big returns because you've got an extra premium or 2 premiums to the vast majority of other teams. Really interesting that. I'm so glad we organised this chat. And guys, if you do want to ask Josh a question or me a question, drop a comment below. We'll get back to everyone. I will get back to everyone. So likes, subscribes, but also comments too. We appreciate that. I wanted to take this opportunity, by the way, to mention a newsletter out there. Josh, I've got to get you signed up to this. Lazy FPL is the best fantasy football resource in terms of newsletters that I've ever come across. There's the Fantasy Football Scout for all your data and your members area stuff, but also Lazy FPL for a newsletter is fantastic. So guys, it's a free newsletter. They're also brilliant for team leaks, by the way, if you're on Twitter. Scan the QR code now on screen. There's also a link in the description. And just, sign up to the newsletter. It's once a week. It's free. It's a no-brainer. It's a really good read. The guys that write it are hilarious. Okay, let's move on to your midfielders, shall we, Josh? Josh, have I convinced you on that newsletter? You're going to sign up to Lazy FPL?
I'm signing up as we speak.
There we go. I'll leave the QR code on screen for you. Okay. A couple more midfielders. He's in the wrong shirt because I don't think FPL had grabbed him in the United shirt yet. He's in a Brentford shirt, and that is Brian Mbeumo. Now, we talk about a sort of data darling that does it all. 90 minutes, depends, the set pieces. The average position map is always great. The shot volume is there. The XG is there. Brian Mbeumo is one of those guys. Will he be one of those guys at Man United, though? That's my big question to you. Because at 8 million, he's well priced.
Yeah, again, with the caveats, both Foden and Mbeumo here are kind of filling a price point as much as anything else. And that with those two, there's a lot of scope there to free up money and drop down to slightly cheaper mids in either of those things. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if I end up going in with a much cheaper mid in at least one of those positions. That said, so why have I gone for those two in this first draft? I mean, yes, he's going to United. That makes him less attractive. There's a sentence you wouldn't have thought you'd say a few years ago.
I know, wow.
It's mad, isn't it? But he is just a quality FPL asset. Like, he's just a great player. Shout out to Omari Hutchinson, who is still an Ipswich player at the moment, but is quite possibly going into Brentford to fill that gap. Seems to be the word on the street at the moment. Who, if not for any data reasons, only for nostalgic ones, would almost certainly make it into my team if he ends up going to Brentford. To an extent, Mbeumo's filling a bit of a gap there. Both him and Foden are much more of a question mark in my team than Palmer and Salah at this point. But they've got the FPL pedigree. They've shown they can do it in the past. Both playing for historically strong teams, let's say, that will be wanting to give a good account of themselves this season. I don't know that I'll end up with any United players in my starting 11 once we actually get to the start of the season, but he's there for the moment.
If he was staying at Brentford, FPL wouldn't have priced him at 8 million. I genuinely think he's had a price drop because of Man United. With those numbers last year, Mbeumo should have been 9. So 9 at Brentford. Honestly, I know it's a lot to play for a Brentford player, but the numbers were insane last year. When you look at all the sort of best performers, he was right up there. So yeah, I was surprised. I was a little bit surprised by that. Like, it is the best performers from last season in midfield. Mbeumo, 236 points. Only Mo Salah in the entire game got more. And Mbeumo's standing away like clear. Cole Palmer, then, there's a drop to 214. Isak, 211. But Mbeumo was clearly the second best player in the game last year. Like, at his price point, it's only because of Man United, which is really interesting.
It's wild, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I get you covering price points with players like Foden and Man City because you'll be worried about Pep Roulette, and of course that can change, and you'll be looking at his minutes in pre-season and all that jazz. But I guess you want a piece of that Man City attack, right? Like, you don't have Haaland. Exactly. Marmoush is a player I've gone for, but he's 8.5 million, and Foden's obviously cheaper than that. So I hear you there.
Yeah, I mean, I can very easily see a situation where I go in with Marmoush instead of Foden.
Yeah.
And end up then having a sort of cheaper alternative to Mbeumo. Equally, could potentially try both. That's one of the things I like about if you're going to play Pep Roulette, getting a couple of City attackers. When City are on form, they are on form. They're going to score goals. Yes, it wasn't their best season ever last season, but I don't think that's changed an awful lot, to be honest. It is what it is. It happens now and again, but I think they're still going to be the force to be reckoned with, or one of the forces to be reckoned with in the league. Having a slice of that attack is definitely key. That's kind of a role that Foden's playing at the minute for me.
Yeah, okay, nice. We're going to end, before we talk about fixtures in just a second, just on your last couple of strikers. You've gone Basement on the bench, common theme. And then you've gone, I guess, again, this is more covering a price point. You've gone with Liam Delap, who João Pedro is a huge threat to his place. And João Pedro will probably be the starting forward at Chelsea for game week 1. Jackson suspended. But Delap at 6.5 million, depending on how he does pre-season. You're an Ipswich fan, of course, so Delap there. But I guess you're kind of thinking, at 6.5 million, there are other good forwards in the game I can move to. A Danny Welbeck, a Strand Larson, someone that I know will get me 90 minutes. And I guess that's important to you when you do go into game week 1.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly with Delap to Nzebi, they're both in there at the moment for the Ipswich nostalgia. But as you say, Delap's hitting that price point. I do like Chelsea's attack. I can easily see myself ending up with João Pedro instead of him.
Yeah.
Mark Guiu is also on my team at the moment from the Ipswich nostalgia point of view, in that I want a 4.5 million forward who's going to sit on the bench at the moment. What inevitably happens is when I pick a 4.5 million forward, they immediately get transferred out of the game to a championship club that's looking for a great young striker on loan. I know we've been after Mark Guiu, so I was hoping if I get him in my team, maybe he'll decide to take the plunge and come play for us. That'd be great. But I suspect he won't be there by the start of the season. I'd like the Chelsea spot for someone who's actually going to play lots for them.
Yeah, and he'll do very well for you, I've no doubt, if he does go. Love that very much. What's your thoughts on João Pedro, by the way? At 58% owned currently, he's the highest picked player. Like, where do you... He did so well in the Club World Cup. 2 goals in the semi, scored in the final. But he isn't going to be a 90-minute man because players like Delap and Jackson are around. They're all going for one spot, right? So, yes, he's going to start. But are you interested more in your 90-minute men? And João Pedro's not going to get that.
Yeah, not so much for the forwards, especially. Like, I'd rather have a forward who's going to play, as long as he's solidly getting 60 minutes. That's what I want. If they're going to play that 60 minutes explosively with the chance of getting those bigger returns, I'd much rather get a couple of goals one week and then a couple of 2-pointers for the next couple of weeks than have someone who's just consistently going to get me 2 points. I'd rather have those explosive forwards who are playing in a team where they've got the upside potential than have forwards who are, yes, they're going to get 90 minutes, but they're playing for a Wolves who... are going to be looking for 1 or maybe 2 goals a game as their kind of upside. I'd rather have someone who's playing for a Chelsea who will be having the ambition of, let's see if we can score 5 every week. You may or may not think that Chelsea are capable of that, but they'll at least be trying.
Yeah, I absolutely hear that. Mate, thank you so much for giving up your time. Guys, do check Josh out on social, on X. You use it a tiny bit, Josh. But thank you so much for joining us today. And look, hopefully we can hear back from you ahead of Game Week 1 to see a new version of your team. If you want to see my team, then I'll drop a link just about here right now so you can see my team selection reacting to the price drops yesterday. Guys, thank you so much for watching. We'll see Josh again, hopefully, before Game Week 1.